that was a good lunch. Hopefully, we will be able to participate actively. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. William Weiss, Head of India Development Center, ABB Global Industries and Services, for the keynote on AR/VR in IoT. Mr. Weiss currently heads the Corporate Development Center at the ABB Ability Innovation Center in Bangalore. He's also a board member of ABB Global Industries and Services Private Limited. Joined the company in 1984, and I'll try to be brief. He spent a lifetime in R&D and headed software development teams in Germany, Sweden, and India. He holds patents in the area of real-time communication, cybersecurity, asset management, and machine learning, and launched his first book in 2019, Preparing for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, a guide to tomorrow's technologies and business strategy. He came first time to India for 3 years in 2004, and he's back and lives in Bangalore since 2013. Over to you, Mr.
So good afternoon, everybody. I think we took a wise decision. So we took not a virtual lunch, we took a real lunch, and now we are talking about virtual reality, augmented reality. And if you compare this, let me say, with lunch, augmented reality is even worse because you would hold the plate in your hand, you would see the lunch, but you cannot grab it. So that is basically the difference. And what I would like to talk today a bit about is what augmented reality and virtual reality really means in industry. So as you heard from the introduction, I'm about 35 years on the job. And actually, when I started, we had about that size monitors, which were a little bit green lines written in 20 lines, maybe maximum. And that is how everything started. And today we are talking about virtual reality, augmented reality. And that is actually, for me, a key change technology in industrial IoT. Looking really, we call this the digital curve at ABB, and we really met McKinsey together. We made a study where the industries are today on their journey in virtualization. And what you can see, all the big industries, oil and gas, utilities, mining, food and beverages, all of them are more or less at the beginning of their journey. And if you really compare this now, what happens with the startup community right now, the startup community is actually growing at the same point in time when the industry wakes up to start their digital journey. So it is actually, all the good things are coming together. And let me say, myself working for a big company, it doesn't make a difference because there are so many use cases in industry that it is just enough for everybody. And actually also big companies cannot solve each and every use case. And the even more important thing is when we're talking about innovation. Innovation comes today so strongly from the startup community that we can embed it, we can combine it, we can bring it together. We talked yesterday a lot about collaboration, but collaboration is really at the key to make IoT successful. And that's why I'm very happy to present here today, and I hope I can give you a little bit insights. We are a small community, so if you have any questions in between, I'm okay with that, or otherwise we will probably have some time at the end for some questions and answers. Point is really, when we are looking at control room, virtual reality is for me mainly the area when you're looking into the control rooms. And what happened about the last decades is actually that the control rooms became bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you're coming sometimes to some large companies, they have whole walls like this wall, and it is full of displays, monitors, dashboards. And by the end of the day, I doubt that so many people will look on this because it is just such a flood of information that it is very difficult to find out what is really relevant. And then, again, from the comfort for the people working there, let me say, if you come to a power plant today, there are maybe 2 operators sitting in front of all these monitors, and actually they do not have much to do because most of the operation are to a large extent working autonomously today. Still, we need to have this kind of operator stations and these kind of displays, because the important thing is if something doesn't go as it should go, then this room becomes very important, because then you need to bring the process under control, you need to find out what is displayed on the different screens, you need to bring this into relation to understand what currently happens at your plant, and then you need to take the right measures to bring your plant back to operation. That is a challenge for the operator. So now, if you think again about virtual reality, we can design an operator station and the control room like this. This design is there for many years and it works. But what can we do with new technologies like virtual reality? And if you're putting artificial intelligence at the background, we can put priorities on the displays. That means the operator does not need to decide in which sequence he or she needs to look at the screens. Actually, the system in the background can decide which information is at which point in time relevant for the operator to get his plant or her plant under control again. That means everything can shrink down to a virtual reality where the operator sees what is at that point in time relevant. And I think that is a big chance introducing this technology. And the second thing is from the history, when you're looking at highly distributed plants, let me say in Germany, when we're looking at big chemical companies, they are almost a whole town in themselves. So it's a huge area they are covering. And each and every plant area from history has its own control room. And customers are very much eager to make so-called control room consolidation. That means actually having the investment for all the equipment once, and then running from one bigger control room all the plant areas across their factory or whatever they have. Again, if we're looking into virtual reality and remote connectivity, why to consolidate the old technology which was there for the last decades? Why not entering into new technology and saying, okay, at least we are starting with the not so critical operational areas. We are transferring this into virtual reality, and then we still have a control room, a traditional one, for the critical plant area. So all this becomes possible today, but still there's a big challenge in all this. And that is when you look, if you have worked with virtual reality, if you had on the Googles and you were wearing them for a while, it is not that comfortable at all. But the major challenge I see actually is the user interface. If you want to be in a control room, and very often the user interface is either something like this, where you have to point to a certain spot in the room, which you actually cannot see, and then you press a button, or you go for voice control. Voice control again, yes, it becomes better and better, but let me say, if I'm in a critical operation situation in a plant, I cannot stand there and say, close the valve. Please close the valve. Close the valve now. It does not work. It has to happen real time. It has to happen immediately. That means the user interfaces we have today are not ready for a virtual reality control room. So everybody is working mainly on making the visualization better, making a higher resolution, but I think the focus needs to be on the user interface. And I think that is a brilliant area where also startups can come up with new ideas. We are working with startups ourselves on this space of how to interact with the control system by the end of the day. So at the end of the control room is always a control system where we are having the process control, where we have all the motors, drives, measurement equipment, what we are calling IoT devices, connected devices. And you need to ensure that you can reach each and every of those devices within less than a second. And that is the challenge where we are looking into, and that is the area where we are also looking for partners to collaborate. And we are not only looking in the industry, let me say, far ahead in this technology is actually the gaming industry. So if you look what our kids are doing today with their device consoles and how they are playing in it, which speed they are playing, if they are walking through a virtual room and they are fighting their enemies and all this stuff, that comes very close to real time. But in the industry, we have not applied such technologies yet, but I'm pretty sure it will come very soon. You have a microphone directly in front of you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So you talked about three different things, right? You talked about consolidation. You talked about virtual reality as a way to bring information hierarchy into it.
Yeah.
And you talked about UIs or user interface like voice or.
Yes.
Now these are generally speaking three independent things.
Yes.
You're saying that they need to come together.
Yes.
Is your thesis then that unless all three happen, industries won't move to these interfaces, or do you see adoption happening, let's say, sequentially?
I think the adoption will happen sequentially because, let me say, as I said, if you're starting, for example, with virtual reality for non-critical areas of your plant, you can move towards this technology, and once the user interfaces evolves to a state where you have real-time interaction possible, then probably the customer will move more and more critical industrial areas into this virtual space and in remote monitoring, remote control to make this happen. So I think it will be a journey, and the first customers starting already with some virtual reality application in the planning area and in the design area for their plants and how to optimize their plants. So they are in virtual reality already. Then, like always, connectivity and cybersecurity. We discussed this in the morning session very much. I am also a believer that things like this need to be on the edge because, let me say, the latency is one thing, but who wants to run a power plant where the operational data, whether to start the turbine or not, is somewhere in the cloud? So probably our customers will not buy into such a technology if it is as vulnerable as a cloud setup. Actually, if you really look at it, it is not the cloud itself. The cloud itself is very good protected, even better than many sites on their own. The challenge is the way to the cloud, between the factory and the cloud. That is a vulnerable area, and there we need to take care of. And last but not least, safety is a big aspect. When I was talking about this real-time interaction, everybody who needs or who wants or will work in our industry needs to be aware that we are responsible for the safety of our people and the customers working at site every day, 24/7. That means if something in the operation goes wrong and somebody gets hurt, we are involved and we are responsible. So that is a very different area, which also makes the technology more stringent, because by the end of the day, if you have a mobile phone and you play an app and the app crashes, okay, you start the app again. If something in a power plant crashes, you have a problem. And we all need to be aware of that. The other big area I see is actually the augmented reality. And the augmented reality is really, we are doing already a lot of prototypes. We have applications on learning, training of people, and also, let me say, we are moving more towards the augmented reality-based instructions for doing repairs. Repair is a big area, and by the end of the day, all you need for virtual reality, all the product information are available. We have them in our CAD systems. You can convert them into augmented reality. We have all the service-specific instructions which you can give to the customer and which you can give to the service engineer. That is all available. It just needs to be brought again into the context. And what becomes very popular is actually the so-called remote expert. And the remote expert actually means that somebody at site who is not specifically trained on your product or a specific product can learn on the fly to do the repair. That means you're looking at a device, and in the augmented reality it will show the explosion drawing, and the explosion drawing shows you exactly where to put your screwdriver, which screwdriver to use, and really how to do the repair of this specific device. Nice technology, but let me say, everybody in the industry also needs to be aware that by introducing this technology, actually we are cannibalizing our own service business. And I think you as a startups, you will make a contribution to this cannibalization easily, because really when you're coming to this kind of services, let me say, when we today have something at home which is broken, do we bring it immediately to a repair station, or do we have a look at YouTube first whether we can fix it ourselves? And exactly that happens in industry as well. If you're now looking at this technology and we are delivering the augmented reality and we are providing the applications which has all these product knowledge and service knowledge, exactly the same thing will happen. And the service business needs to find new ways to be productive, to create revenues for you as well as for us. So that is actually what I see in the trend. And the only challenge is, again, for me at the moment, the user interface, because also that, if you want to have the augmented reality glasses, it is actually good because you have both hands free for working. But if you have both hands free for working, you still need to interact. Interacting with the remote expert is easy, and because, okay, that is voice, you talk to him and he's sitting somewhere and he's seeing the same thing that you do. But if you want to give instructions to the app, then you need to give instructions, typically also via voice. And that works when we are in a very nice environment. If you're working at our labs, everything sounds good and everything works. If you then go to the plant where machines are running, where motors are running, where you have fans, you have dust and everything, most of the time it doesn't work. And I think that is again a challenge. There we can, the big companies who are focusing on voice recognition and all this, they will help us to filter out these disturbing noises. This technology will become better. And I think also, again, it will be an evolution. It will not be a step change, because we can apply it right away in some clean, ordered environment where you don't have so much noise. And then over the time, it will evolve in a direction that you can also use it in harsh environments or in very noisy environments. So these are from this session today, augmented and reality and virtual reality, the major trends I see so far. I think we have some 2-3 minutes left, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So, I mean, in the industrial world, in industrial IoT, I think all of the startups we have seen plagued by the pace of change, right? Be it augmented reality, virtual reality, IoT. I mean, it seems like the trials, the pilots go on forever, and then it takes years to kind of scale up. Is there any other way? What would be your suggestion to the startups? Is there any way to kind of hasten the change, or is the nature of industries that these guys will take their own sweet time?
I would say the challenge I see is that the current pace we see is driven by technology. And if you're really looking at the industry is driven by money. And money comes from improvements, money comes from new solutions or the application of the new technology. And that means we are having right now a very strong technology push and a not so strong business pull. And that slows it down very often, because also our customers, when we are talking about this, we are in the B2B business, which is much more reluctant to change than the B2C business. That means very often our customers are only starting to pull if they see an almost perfect solution. And I think that is also the area where startups and companies like my company, ABB, and other big companies need to come together to ensure the customer that everything is as per their expectations, they get their long-term support, and they get a quality standard which is common in the industry, and putting our heads together so that we have the innovation part, we have the process part, we have the customer trust and the customer commitment. I think that is the best way to speed it up.
From a company where we are into this augmented reality industry for the last 6 years. Successfully, we are pioneer to implement in automobile industry.
Yep.
So coming from that industry level, coming from the automotive industry level, for last 6 years, we cannot see the improvement with respect to the augmented reality of virtual reality. When it comes to a training perspective, yes, to certain to some extent,
Yep.
to some certain we are able to give them to the one point of contact to explain them about the features. But in long way, probably I would say, like for example, for a training perspective, in an OEM, where the dealership people have to go to the OEM to get trained.
Yep.
Wherein we have given a solution for the virtual reality where they can have this equipment in the different places. They can have to have classes through the virtual reality.
Yeah.
So this we have given some idea. But what is your suggestion in long way? How it can be equipped and how best it can be into this industry? That.
The first point I see right away is the equipment itself. If you want to have virtual training or augmented reality-based training, and you need to come to a point where the equipment is affordable. So a small service organization with, let me say, 10, 20 employees, they will not invest thousands of dollars into Google Glasses or into HoloLens and things like that. So the technology for that kind is still very expensive. And the second thing, I think, especially for you now, look into scalability. Very often we are working on applications which are tailor-made for one customer. And if you want to scale it, you need to have building blocks. And the building blocks based on augmented or virtual reality needs to scale up to 10, 100,000, 10,000 people. Then you can create a training platform, which is much more easy to sell on a big scope, rather than to interact with one customer and really put on the last bells and whistles on his training program. Okay, I think I have to close now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Veed. And may I request Manmohan, our Thai Charter member, to hand over the memento. Thank you, and we'll just take a moment to set up the stage for the final discussion.